Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough, and welcome back to another Epic Media Battle! So today we're comparing two animated boy geniuses. This is Dexter's Laboratory versus Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. But first, some backstory. Hailed as the very first Cartoon Network show, Dexter's Lab was made in 1996 by Gennady Tartakovsky. That's right, the same creator of Samurai Jack. Lasting about 4 seasons, the show centers on a boy genius named Dexter who has a secret laboratory in his house. Other characters in the show include his ditzy sister Dee Dee, who always gets into his lab and virtually breaks everything he creates. There's also their parents, who are your typical 50s style sitcom parents, and for the villain role we have an evil boy genius similar to Dexter named Mandark, who is supposed to be his rival. As for Jimmy Neutron started off as a series of animated shorts by Steve Odekirk. Nickelodeon liked it, and so they made a movie out of it in 2001. A year later, it was also given a show that lasted 5 years. As for the series, we have Jimmy Neutron, he's a boy genius, could you have guessed, along with his robot dog Goddard, his bumbling best friends Carl and Sheen, their potential love interest Cindy, and her best friend Libby, and they go on adventures with science. So on to round 1, the characters. In my opinion, I think Jimmy Neutron had better characterization. Honestly, I felt Jimmy Neutron had better character development. They would give episodes specifically to a bunch of different characters and give them stories to work with. Also, Jimmy had a way larger cast. I mean, this picture on screen right here, this had most of the major characters in it. When it comes to Dexter, however, there was really only 5 main characters, and they kind of focused on 2, maybe 3, Dexter, Dee Dee, and Mandark for the most part. Even though Dexter only had 5 main characters, they did have some pretty funny background characters. Especially the Justice Friends and Dial M for Monkey, as well as other characters like Action Hank. That guy was a badass. Most of the characters on Dexter aren't really there to have depth. Most of them are there just to supply humor for the audience, which is a good thing for the kind of comedy that Dexter's Lab offered. Dexter just worked alone for the most part. Jimmy at least had a robot dog and 2 best friends. Say what you want to say, Carl and Sheen were leagues above this Bo guy that they had. I mean, seriously, who was this guy? Who was he? Come on. Come to think of it though, Dexter does have a superpowered pet monkey and his sister Dee Dee who could easily destroy Jimmy's lab if he wanted her to. Either way, I think the point should go to Jimmy Neutron because again, in my opinion, I think they had better characterization. Point goes to Jimmy Neutron. Now on to round 2, the Inventions. Who was the better scientist? Both of these boys are brilliant and can build some very impressive pieces of hardware, but whose was more impressive? Well, Jimmy Neutron's creations felt more like Double D's inventions because they were made out of household appliances. Except, I think Jimmy's worked a lot more than Double D's did. Sorry, Ed. And Jimmy would make these creations to speed up everyday life. Dexter's just seemed to be made just so they could be completed, as if they were actually made in some kind of government facility. Even though they're geniuses, they still end up screwing up from time to time. With Jimmy, it was often just some kind of mistake or a miscalculation. With Dexter, it was obviously Dee Dee. And whenever one of their inventions went haywire, Jimmy always found a way to stop it. For example, in the episode Pants Attack, Jimmy creates a ray that makes Pants sentient so it speeds up cleaning up his room. And it ends up bringing all the Pants in town to life and they go on a rampage. But it's okay because Jimmy stops them in the end. Whenever Dee Dee screws up Dexter's inventions, he just kind of kicks her out, walks it off, and moves on to the next project, or starts over again.
Dee Dee, come down here this instant and take off my suit! Hi, Dexter! I do not have any more time to spend on this foolishness.
So Jimmy would learn from his mistakes, whereas Dexter would just move on to the next project or start over again. And considering that Dexter just makes his inventions for the sole purpose of science, I think that makes him the better scientist. So point goes to Dexter. Sorry Jimmy, your stuff's cool, but yeah, Dexter's definitely a better engineer. Now on to round 3, the shows themselves. Which did I like more and which had the better run? In terms of lasting better, I'd have to go with Jimmy Neutron. It's because Jimmy Neutron was more consistent, and a lot of Dexter fans know what I'm talking about. The last 2 seasons of Dexter had a major drop in terms of their quality. After the Dexter's Lab movie, Ego Trip, Gennady Tartakovsky decided to end the show. But once 2001 hit, the show was revived for another season. Does that sound familiar? However, even though Jimmy was more consistent, I do have a very minor complaint. Why is it in the later seasons they had to really rely on special episodes? But it's not that bad, because most of these specials were pretty good, like the Jimmy Timmy Power Hours. Except for the third one, that one wasn't very good. And the Jet Fusion episodes. And then you got ones like Win, Lose, Kaboom, which were just kinda okay. But I would happily take those kind of specials over the newer episodes of Dexter in the last 2 seasons. I mean, my god, the episodes in Dexter at that point just became so boring. And while some of these episodes were funny, most of the gags went on longer than a Family Guy cutaway. Not to mention, they started using less and less extra segments like Dial M for Monkey and Justice Friends. Why? Those were great! Wait, you know what? In retrospect, it's probably best that they didn't try to do those again because they would have made them bad. In terms of which show I liked more, though, I'd probably say I liked Dexter more because I found it more funny and entertaining. Look, as much as I'm ragging on the later seasons of Dexter's Lab, I did think it was more entertaining than Jimmy Neutron was in certain areas, especially with the comedy. Sure, Jimmy Neutron was funny, but I like Dexter's Lab's style of comedy more because I'm a huge fan of slapstick. And I think Dexter's Lab, along with other shows on Cartoon Network like Ed, Edd n Eddy, Johnny Bravo, and even Powerpuff Girls to a certain extent, did a really good job at going back to old school Warner Brothers Looney Tunes style slapstick comedy. And that's why I really enjoyed Dexter's Lab, along with a lot of other people. Both of these shows worked in different ways. Jimmy had more intricate storylines, whereas Dexter, I found, was a lot funnier. So in a weird way, I think both should get a point. Jimmy was more consistently entertaining, but in terms of quality, I think Dexter was more entertaining. So, point goes to both of them. Now on to round 4, the movies. Jimmy's introduction movie and Dexter's finale movie. Well, it was supposed to be, but then, yeah, the seasons continued. We briefly talked about this in this exact video, and a bunch of other reviewers have looked at this movie, or, I don't know, you could watch it yourself, but if you haven't seen it, it's pretty much Mars Needs Moms, but actually good. Jimmy sends a satellite up into space where it's found by these alien egg robot things called the Yokians, who abduct everyone's parents to sacrifice to an alien chicken god thing. So it's up to our young heroes to save the day. When I was younger, I loved this movie. Now that I'm older, still pretty good. It's got some flaws, but still think it's enjoyable. It works well as an intro to the Jimmy Neutron continuity. The action's pretty cool, most of the jokes are still pretty funny, the voice acting is solid, the animation... Okay, yeah, the animation's pretty bad. It's very early 2000s, and it's definitely not Pixar or DreamWorks quality. But hey, for a movie that was actually nominated an animation Oscar, that's pretty good. Crap, this probably isn't gonna be fair. I mean, one's a theatrical movie and the other one's a straight-to-TV movie. Yikes. With that said, Ego Trip was actually pretty good too. In the movie, Dexter is confronted by these robots who wish to destroy the one who saved the future, and he defeats them. And Dexter, being as egotistical as he is, thinks that he's the one that saves the future. So he goes forward in time and comes across a bunch of different Dexters. Yeah, it's not called Ego Trip for nothing. Let's just say that it ends with 4 different Dexters and 4 different Mandarks having a battle, and it is awesome.
You climb, you spaghetti, you nincompoop, you dingo.
So yeah, I think that both of these movies work in their own particular way. I especially like the way that Ego Trip actually ends with the twist.
Wait a minute. I'm still here fighting those robots, but wait. Those are the robots I just built to get Dee or we'll build in the future. But now I'm about to destroy them before I even decide to go into the future. So that means when I came back too far back before I ever left. So I must have come or they were... Oh, forget it. Time travel hurts on my brain.
So just like the shows, I think each movie should get a point because they both work in their own aspect. Jimmy's was a good introduction movie, and Dexter's was a good send-off to the character. Point goes to both. Now on to a bonus round. Which had the worst Christmas special? Because, oh god, I hated these episodes so much. Both involve our boy geniuses trying to discredit the existence of Santa Claus, both of which through a musical number.
Dad dresses up in the Santa get-up, and then he puts the car up on the rooftop. He makes the car look like a sleigh, dear, and Mom dresses up just like a reindeer.
Wow guys, you're making TJ Kirk look less smug and condescending, and that's an accomplishment. Of course, since these are animated holiday specials, Santa actually does exist. In the Jimmy special, it turns out that Santa isn't magic, but rather a genius who has extensive technology like Jimmy does. In the Dexter special, Dexter tries to dispose of Santa by taking him out with missiles. What's worse, he tries to take out Santa and his reindeer, thinking that it's his parents.
You sick freak!
And then we get the ending, which I know is supposed to be a spoof, but it's not that funny.
You blockhead! That's not what Christmas is about!
It's not? Then what is it about?
The presents.
I see where they were going with these specials. You have the characters start off as the, oh, I don't like Christmas because I'm too smart to enjoy something so childish type, and then they become less of Scrooges as the special progress. However, it's ruined because these characters become incredibly unlikable. So, Jimmy's felt a little bit more genuine, but Dexter's was shorter, so... Nah, neither gets a point. They both suck. So yeah, this one comes down to a tie for me. I think Jimmy Neutron was good in terms of its characters and its stories, but I think that Dexter was more entertaining and more funny for me. But that's just me. Which do you guys pick? Do you guys pick either side, or are you like me and you like both? I'd like to see what you guys have to say. I'm the Media Wiz, because One Art Forum wasn't enough.
Elastic tubes and pots and pans, bits and pieces and magic from the hand.